We're in Perek Lamed Beis. We're going to start 2 lines in the bottom on page Mem Aleph. Okay? 2 lines in the end of the page. I believe a few lines we learned to the next page, but we didn't have a class last week. And the week before that, we had a Fabrengen. So let's start over there. 2 lines in the end of the page. Okay, in Perek Lamed Beis, that the Rebbe says is the heart of Tanya. Now, the Rebbe says, based on what he explained before, that the body is despicable, and the primary person is the neshama, and the neshama is so infinitely great, and the body is despicable, and you realize that my neshama and your neshama and his neshama and her neshama, we're all brothers. We are all neshamas. We have the same neshama. So then he says it's very easy to come to the mitzvah of you can love your friend as yourself. Why can you love him as yourself? Because realistically speaking, what differentiates one Jew from the next is only the body. The neshama is exactly the same neshama. So therefore, if by you primary is neshama, so then you and somebody else is the same thing. So you love him like yourself. Then he explained that's why Hillel said to the potential convert that don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. That is the whole Torah and everything else's explanation. Why? So we learned because the only way a person can come to keep Torah properly is only if the neshama is more important than the body. If my bodily temptations and needs and desires are more important than my neshama, there's no way I'm going to keep kosher properly, Shabbos properly, or whatever it may be. Okay. He says now like this. Calls the Gemara. So now he asks a question. It says in the Gemara, one last thing, which is very important. One last thing. Now the Rebbe says, and where can Hashem rest? Of course, the Zohar that says Hashem doesn't rest in Basar Pogim in a blemished place. Like it said, Barchenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad, which means not only God should bless us as one. Barchenu Avinu, when is it possible for Hashem to bless us? When Kulanu Ke'echad, we are all one. Okay, so basically, you have to love every Jew unconditionally. Okay, so now he asks the question. Masha calls the Gemara this that it says in the Gemara. The Gemara says like this. If you see a friend of yours that sinned, mitzvah l'snaisei, the Gemara says it's a mitzvah to hate him, the gamlemer l'Rabbi, and to tell his teacher, she is that he should hate him also. In other words, the Gemara says seemingly a contradictory thing here. The Gemara says, if you see somebody sin, you have a mitzvah to hate him, and you should tell the sinner's teacher that he should hate him. That contradicts everything what we just said about Ahavas Yisrael. So he says like this, top of the page. What does the Gemara mean like this? It refers to Chaveda b'Torah mitzvah. It refers to his friend, a friend. It says, if you see your friend sinning. It doesn't say if you see a Jew sinning. The Gemara says the expression out that ever says like this. If you see your friend sinning, what do you mean your friend? He says, it refers to Chavere B'Torah mitzvahs. It refers to a guy that's on your level. He's religious. He's on your level in Torah mitzvahs. And and you already fulfilled the mitzvah of admonishing him. Like the biblical mitzvahs, if you see somebody sinning, and the Torah says the double expression, admonish, you should admonish. And the Gemara learns out, what's the double expression? Even 100 times. That means if you admonish them once and it didn't go, you have to do it again and again and until he hits you. Okay? So he says like this. What does the Gemara mean? If you see your friend sinning, it's a mitzvah to hate him. Means like this. Number one, he's a friend equal to you in the level of Torah. And you already fulfilled the mitzvah. es amisacha. The Rebbe says, what does amisacha mean? It seemingly means your friend, but it also means am she'itcha. Amitcha means am she'itcha. It's short for a nation that's with you in Torah mitzvahs. Va'af al pikein lo yishav mechet. He still didn't do tshuva. Then the Gemara says you have a mitzvah to hate him. Meaning, some in practical language, somebody who's your friend in Torah mitzvah, he's religious, and you saw him sin, and you admonished him 100 times, and he still didn't do tshuva, then you have a mitzvah to hate him. And now Rebbe is not done. But that's what the Gemara means, you have a mitzvah to hate him. But, like it says in Sefer Acharei, but somebody who's not your friend, and he's not close to you, meaning, in practical language, he's not on your level of Yiddishkeit. He's not on your level of Yiddishkeit. Concerning this, Hillel Lazakin said to his students, have a mitalmid of Shal Ari in Pirkei Avos, right? What did Hillel say in Pirkei Avos? You should be a disciple of Aaron, Oyev Shalem, who loves peace. Reidev Shalem, he doesn't say, but one runs after peace. Oyev Sabrias, he loves creations, Umekarvan La Torah, and brings them closer to Torah. Hillel says a person should be a student, disciple of Aaron. What did Aaron do? Aaron ran to make peace. In fact, it says in Avos the Rab Nosson, which is like a brisa on Pirkei Avos, over there they elaborate much more on the Mishnahs of Pirkei Avos. Over there, the Gemara says, how did Aaron make peace between people? When Aaron HaKohen saw two people fighting, he went over to, let's say Reuven and Shimon were fighting. He went over to Reuven and said to him a white lie, but I'll explain to you why it's not a white lie. He said a white lie, you know, Shimon really wants to make up with you. When Reuven heard that Shimon wants to make up with him, he says, okay, so I'll make up with him too. Then Aaron HaKohen went to Shimon, and he said, Shimon, Reuven wants to make peace with you. And that's the way Aaron made peace between Reuven and Shimon, between two people fighting. He lied. But the truth is, first of all, sometimes for peace, you're allowed to make what's called a white lie. You're not allowed to say a real lie. But you're a white lie out there, it's called in English. But the truth of the matter is, he didn't lie at all. Why didn't they? He said he wants to make up with you. You never heard that he wants to make up with you. Because like the Rambam says, every Jew wants to do what's right. Who's forcing him to go against his will? The Yetzer Hara is forcing you to go against what your real will is. The real will of a Jew, the Rambam says, is to do what Hashem wants us to do. So therefore, when Aaron HaKohen went over to Reuven and said, you know, Shimon wants to make up with you, that's the emes, that's the truth. Even if Shimon says, I don't want to make up with him, but that's not Shimon talking, that's the Yetzer Hara talking. It's a phenomenal Rambam that the Rabbi always quoted. The Rambam is saying, so when Aaron HaKohen went to Reuven and said, Shimon wants to make up with you, he didn't lie. He does want to make up with you because that's what the neshama wants. So what is he coming back to this point? What did Hillel say? You should be a disciple of Aaron HaKohen. What did he do? He loved peace. Not only did he love peace, he chased peace. He ran to make peace. And then he said the third thing, two more things. He said four statements. Oyeves Abrias. He loved creatures. Umekarvan La Torah, and he brought them closer to Torah. What does that mean? So the Alter Rebbe says like this. Leima. Now, obviously, if you have to bring a person closer to Torah, that means he's not close. He's not chaveroi. He's not on your level of Torah mitzvahs. because then you don't have to be mekadev into mitzvahs. He says, Leimet, to say, what does Hillel say? Even somebody who's very far from Torah and Avodah of Torah serving Hashem, and therefore they're even called Briyos Ba'alma. They are called creatures. And here the Alter Rebbe is saying another phenomenal thing. And the Rebbe has so many sichos explaining different gemaras of this thing what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here. Hillel doesn't say love people. He says Eivas Briyos. Briyos means that the only thing going for them is that they're God's creature. They have nothing else going for them. The only thing they have going for them, they're briyos, they're God's creature. They're not intelligent, they're not religious, they're not nothing. What is their uniqueness? They're a creature of God. God made them. The famous story in the Gemara, when Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon Yochai's son, Rabbi Lazar, the famous Rabbi Lazar, was traveling. And he was going to become a Rav in a certain city, the Gemara says. And he bumped into an ugly person. And he said, Rabbi Lazar said to the person, Kama mechur adam zeh. Ugh, look how ugly this guy is. Can you imagine? What did the guy answer him? Lech lo uman shasani. What do you want from me? Go to the one that made me. It's a wonderful Gemara for Atlantic City, the Mr. America, Miss Universe, whatever. What is this? Rabbi Lazar ben Shimon. That was so great that Rabbi Shimon said, if the two tzaddikim in this generation, it's me and you. That means he was second to Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Rabbi Lazar is walking in the street and he sees an ugly man. He's going to say, "Ach, look how ugly this guy is." I mean, come on. By the way, the Gemara continues the story. They kept walking together, and they came to the city, and the whole city came out to meet the new Rav, Rabbi Lazar. And the guy asked, this ugly guy asked the people in the city, "Why are you coming out?" He says, "What do you mean? He's a new Rav." He said, "If this guy's a new Rav, you shouldn't have people like that." He was upset. So the Rebbe explains what happened over here. Why is Rabbi Lazar, Reb Shimon saying the guy's ugly? And the Rebbe brings out so beautifully based on this Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe explains that Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Rabbi Lazar ben Reb Shimon didn't see a physically ugly person. Rabbi Lazar was not into that. Rabbi Lazar did something for a specific reason. He said, "Look how ugly you are." He meant spiritually you're ugly. Why did he say it? Because he wanted to bring out something in the person that the person should realize he's not ugly. What did he say? What did Rabbi Lazar cause the person to say? Go to the one that made me. Meaning, I'm a creation of God. What do you mean I'm ugly? Even if I'm empty from Torah mitzvahs, like the Rebbe says, the only thing going for this person is that he's God's creature. That's it. No learning, no davening, no kedusha, nothing. The only thing going for him is he's a creature of Hashem. That's what Rabbi Lazar wanted to bring out, that the person should realize his greatness. In fact, in the Mishnah that we say before learning Pirkei Avos, Kol Yisrael yesh lam chelek aleim haba. Every Jew has a share that Shenamar v'amech kulam tzadikim lo'elam yishu aretz neitzem atu. They're the planting in my trees. Ma'aseh Yoda, Hashem says, every person, Kol Yisrael yesh lam, they are my creations. A person who is a creation of God has to be loved. Not because he's smart, great, rich, brilliant, whatever. You have to love him because Hashem made him. And that's what Hillel said. Hillel said, if you're talking about somebody that's on your level of Torah mitzvahs, and you admonished him, and he still didn't do tshuva, yes, you have a mitzvah to hate him. And soon, hopefully we'll get to it today, the Alter Rebbe will say you also don't hate him. You hate what he does, not the person. But the Alter Rebbe says, if you're not talking about that, you're talking about a Jew that's not on your level of Yiddishkeit. So of course he doesn't, even though he's sinning, so to speak, they're not from, they're not religious, they're not keeping Torah mitzvahs. Hillel says no. Even though the person's far. They're only creatures. The only thing going for them is their Hashem's creation. You have to attract them with strong cords of ava, of love. And like in America, there's an expression, you kill them with love. The kula haiva ulai, and perhaps if you love them, you'll bring them closer. If you notice the whole, so to speak, Baal Tshuva movement, how did they get people? Because they showed love to the person, unconditional love. If a person knows they're loved because of Torah, then the Torah attracts them. Love does it. And he says, I want to explain something about Busi, and even if you don't bring him to closer to Torah, you still get the mitzvah of loving the person. There's still, you're still getting the mitzvah of Yisrael. Dr. Rebbe says like this: somebody that's not on your level of Yiddishkeit, or for that matter, somebody that is, and you didn't admonish him, because Dr. Rebbe says the only time you're allowed to admonish him is if on your level, and you admonished him, and he didn't listen. But otherwise, you didn't admonish him, you still have mitzvah to love. But anybody else, now the Rebbe says, again, to use the American expression, you kill them with love. There's a very famous story. I remember from when I was in second grade, maybe third grade, in our reader, where there was a famous story, but it's a Meidendik lesson in Avedus Hashem. There was a fight between the sun and the wind. S-U-N, sun, the Shemesh. There was a fight between the sun and the wind. Who is stronger? Who is more powerful? So how are they going to prove it? So there was a guy walking, wearing a garment. And they said, whoever will get that garment off the guy, that's the one that's stronger. Fair deal. The wind went first. The wind started blowing. The guy held on to the coat. The wind blew more. Still held on more. The more the wind blew, the more the guy held on to the coat. So this wind saw it's not getting anywhere. So the sun said, my turn. So the sun comes out and starts warming up the place, warmer and warmer and warmer. And finally, the guy takes off the coat. That's the story. It's a Meidendik lesson. With warmth, you'll accomplish much more than with screaming and yelling, and gvura, with severity. You want to get somebody, the way you do it is only with love. And that's what Alter Rebbe says. What Hillel said, bring them closer to the Torah. But there's another thing that's very important. When Alter Rebbe is speaking about bringing somebody closer to Torah, Hillel finishes a statement with karvan la Torah, and bring them closer to Torah. And the Rebbe emphasized countless times that what it means is Hillel doesn't say bring the Torah to them. Hillel said bring them to the Torah. Because many people think wrongly so, because Torah says differently, that if I want to bring somebody closer to Yiddishkeit, I have to compromise Yiddishkeit to be able to get, because if I give them authentic Yiddishkeit, they'll never accept it. So I have to water it down a little bit, reform it, change it, and water it down, compromise it. Then I'll be able to bring it. Hillel says no. It doesn't say Mekarev HaTorah Lohem. The Mishnah, Hillel never said, bring the Torah to them. What did Hillel say? Bring them closer to Torah. Torah is authentic. You can't compromise Torah. But Rebbe explains even more. The fact that Hillel says, Mekarvan la Torah, that means Torah says we could do it. People think if I ask authentic Yiddishkeit, how am I in the world am I going to get this guy? They're not going to accept it. So therefore, whatever. Hillel says, no, that's not according to Torah. Torah says, bring them closer to Torah because you could do it. We had countless times, just give you one example. Women were, the couples were getting married. Yeah. And the rabbi, even sometimes Orthodox rabbis, so-called Orthodox rabbis, we don't classify Jews, but they didn't bother. I know because from the mikveh, they have these problems. They never tell the women how to go to the mikveh properly. And they said, when you speak to them, I never thought they would do it. They're not religious. I never dreamt they would do mikveh. Yet when you go to them and ask them, explain to them the importance of mikveh, how beautiful it is before marriage and after, they willingly accept it. Why should a Jew compromise Torah when Torah and the Jew is so great that we have the koyach, Torah says, to bring them closer to the Jew? And that's real Ahavas Yisrael. Loving a Jew with Torah mitzvahs, physical mitzvahs, helping somebody out, the spiritual mitzvahs, between man and God and man. Torah says, bring them closer to you. Could do it. And that's with real love. With real love of another Jew, you do it. And now the Alter Rebbe says even more. Even the first thing that the Gemara says, you have to hate them, right? Why? Because they're on your level. And they still didn't do tshuva. That the Gemara says, mitzvah l'sneisam. It's a mitzvah to hate them. But the Alter Rebbe says, mitzvah lahavim gamki. You have to love him also. The Gemara doesn't say you're not allowed to love him. The Gemara says you have to hate him. But there's also mitzvah to love him. And the Alter Rebbe says, shtein hein emes. Both are true. You can love and hate at the same time. How? Sina machmas harasha bahem. You hate the evil that's in them. The ava mitzah bechinas hatev, and the love is from the hidden good. Hagonas bahem, which is hidden within them, which is nitzut elokusha b'seicham, the godly spark within them that gives life. To explain this with a very simple analogy. Parents have unconditional love for the kids. That's a given. Yet, when a kid does something really bad, okay, and for a second the parent thinks, I'm going to kill that kid, okay, at that moment they hate the kid, but they don't hate the kid. They hate what the kid does. They hate the action and behavior of the kid, but simultaneously they love the kid. They don't hate the kid. They hate what the kids did, with the behavior. Now, they're ever saying the same thing with another Jew. You have another Jew, okay, who's really your neshama, their neshama is the same neshama. Now this Jew sinned, you admonished him, and he still didn't listen to you. So you might say you have to hate him. So the Alter Rebbe explains, what are you hating? Not him. You hate the evil that he did. But the good in him, who's the real him, that gives life to him, that gives life, that you love. In other words, Alter Rebbe is saying a very simple thing. You never hate a Jew. Even unless they say all the way at the end, that because in the total, apostates, that nothing that, okay, then you have a mitzvah to hate them. And we'll discuss, I'm not going to get there today. We'll discuss also what that means. But a normal Jew, religious, not religious, behaves, doesn't behave, it's totally irrelevant. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, Eivus Abriyas, to love creatures, creations of Hashem. Sometimes the Gemara says, if it's a friend of on your level of Torah mitzvah, and he sinned, and you told him off, and he still didn't do tshuva, you have to hate him. But Dr. Rebbe explains, you don't hate him. Him, you don't hate, or her. You hate their behavior. You hate the evil that they did. You don't hate them. And again, and to understand this very simply, is with the analogy of our own children. You can hate what the child does, but you love the child. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, the mitzvah of V'ahavta Re'echa Kamecha applies to any single Jew. In fact, the Sefer Mitzvah Gdela says, it's a mitzvah to hate a Rasha as much as it is to love a tzaddik. It's a mitzvah to love a Rasha Gamor as much as it is to love a tzaddik. How could that be? Again, not apikursim and the people that, minim and apikursim. That's a different kind of. Why? Because the sinning is not them. It's their behavior. It might even be their intellect, their emotions, their seichel and midas. It might be their machshava dibur and ma'aseh. It might be their thought, spirit, speech, and action. It might be all that. It's not them. You love the person. You hate their behavior. And that applies even to those people that the Gemara says you have to hate. Even those people that the Gemara says you have to hate, you have to love them anyway. Because what you hate is their behavior, not who they really are. And this is a remarkable concept. This is why we said it's in Perek Lamed Beis of Tanya. The Rebbe explains, because the Rebbe always calls it the Perek Lev of Tanya. This is the heart of Chassidus. The heart of Chassidus that the Baal Shem Tov taught, and in Chassidus HaKlol even, and each one of the Rebbes added to the concept of what the Baal Shem Tov said, until the time of the Baal Shem Tov, including the time of the Baal Shem Tov itself. The mitzvah of Avos Yisrael only existed to somebody because he was a scholar. If he was illiterate, they hated him. And it's based on the Gemara in Psachim. There's 3 pages in Gemara Psachim how you have to hate the Namaritz. But that doesn't apply to him. The love that one Jew had to another Jew was only because he had learning Torah. If he didn't learn Torah, he was a behema, they hated the person. Comes along the Baal Shem Tov and teaches a new concept in religion. A Jew is a Jew you love because he's a Jew. And that simple Jew who's ignorant and illiterate is not less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore there's a mitzvah after to every single Jew, no matter who they are. Sometimes you have to hate them. You don't hate them, you hate what they're doing. Okay, we're going to stop here. Mitzvah Shem Monday. Everybody this week, don't forget the Shabbos Mevarchim, Shabbos Shkolim, pray for Torahs this week. Everybody have a very good rest of the week and weekend. Mitzvah Shem Monday night, 8:30. We will have the class